What do you get when you mix an armored truck, a love-struck ex-nurse, and a convicted poet with a fake mustache? Apparently, the greatest disappearing act Las Vegas has never solved. It's October 1st, 1993. Las Vegas. 9 a.m. The sun is shining, Elvis impersonators are sweating, and an armored truck is rolling down the strip carrying over $3 million in cold, hard casino cash. Totally normal day. Two guys, Scott Stewart and Steve Marshall, are doing the usual, hopping out to refill ATMs at the Circus Hotel, which, yes, is a real place with actual clowns and somehow still less shady than what's about to go down. Meanwhile, the driver of the truck, 21-year-old Heather Tallchief, does something truly wild. She just drives away. With the truck. And all the money. Leaving her two co-workers inside a literal clown-themed casino wondering if they've been punked or kidnapped by Cirque du Soleil. And here's the twist, this wasn't some heat-of-the-moment, Bonnie and Clyde fantasy. Nope. Heather planned this. Methodically. 4 months. All because of love, desperation, and, let's be honest, a touch of I can't believe this actually worked. But to understand how Heather went from licensed nurse to full-blown fugitive, we need to rewind. Like, way back. Pre-heist. Pre-truck. Pre-Las Vegas. Let's talk about Buffalo in New York, not the most obvious place to begin a casino heist story, but here we are. Heather grew up in a household that was less loving support system and more emotionally unavailable alcoholics raising a future felon. Her parents divorced when she was young, and she lived with her dad until age 16, a man described less like father of the year and more like a guy who definitely forgot your birthday while cracking open a cold one. Eventually, Heather moved to San Francisco to live with her mom and chase her dream of becoming a nurse, because nothing says stable career path like going from emotional neglect to full-time hospice care. But hey, she made it work. In 1991, she became a certified nursing assistant and got a job at California Pacific Medical Center. Everything seemed okay, until it didn't. A couple of years in, Heather started spiraling. Burnout, alcohol, and substance use crept in like uninvited party guests. Her performance nosedived. And just like that, she was fired. So what's a recently unemployed, emotionally frayed 20-something to do? Apparently, go clubbing. A lot. And that's when she met him. Picture it, a dimly lit San Francisco nightclub, 1993. Heather's sipping a drink, contemplating her life choices, when a man nearly twice her age slides up next to her and offers to buy her a drink. That man? Roberto Solis. Age 48. Convicted felon. Aspiring Casanova. Literal poet. And for Heather? Instant hard eyes. Now, before you yell at your screen like it's a horror movie, yes, Roberto was way too old for her. And yes, he had just a few red flags. Like, being sentenced to life in prison for killing a guard during an attempted robbery. Just minor things. But Heather? She's smitten. The man's got charm. Swagger. And a name that sounds like it belongs in a telenovela. Within days, she moves in with him. And we all know nothing bad ever happens when you move in with a man you just met at a bar, right? Let's rewind for a second. Back to Roberto's villain origin story. In 1969, he and some buddies robbed a Loomis armored car, the same company Heather would later work for. Ironic, huh? But the heist went sideways, a guard was killed, and Roberto got life in prison. End of story? Not even close. While locked up, Roberto reinvented himself as a reformed poet under the alias Pancho Aguila. He wrote 5 books, gained literary cred, and charmed the parole board with enough sonnets and good behavior to get out early. Because apparently, in the 80s, you could poem your way out of life in prison. Fast forward to post-prison Roberto meeting vulnerable Heather. He sees her as the perfect partner in crime, and not just figuratively. She's young, broke, kind-hearted, and very persuadable. So naturally, he introduces her to alternative spirituality, aka a crash course in magical thinking and criminal logistics. You know, the usual dinner date stuff. Within a few months, they're in Las Vegas, renting a tiny apartment and plotting what might be the smoothest, most bizarre heist in Sin City history. Heather starts applying for jobs with armored car companies. Because what's more suspicious than a woman with zero security background trying to drive around millions of dollars? Apparently, nothing. Because she lands a job at Loomis, the same company Roberto tried to rob decades earlier. I know. You can't make this stuff up. Her fake resume claimed she'd worked security for an art collector named Julius Suave, which, spoiler, was just one of Roberto's made-up identities. Honestly, with that name, I'm surprised they didn't give her a raise on the spot. Soon enough, she's in. Heather's working the routes, observing the patterns, getting promoted, earning trust, and, most importantly, learning how to disappear with a truck full of cash. 3 months of prepping, and they're ready. The plan? Foolproof. The timing? Impeccable. The disguises? Questionable. But hey, when has that ever stopped anyone? Alright, buckle up, because here comes the heist. It's October 1st, 1993. A Friday. Heather wakes up, calls a taxi, because obviously the woman about to steal $3 million isn't commuting in her own car, and heads to work like it's just another day in her very secure, very responsible armored truck job. Meanwhile, Roberto is clearing out their apartment and prepping the base of operations, aka a random rented warehouse he decked out under the fake business name Steel Reinforcement Services. Real subtle, right? Heather meets up with her 2 co-workers, Scott Stewart and Steve Marshall. Together, they load up the armored truck with enough cash to make your eyes water, mostly $20s and hundreds of dollars, stacked like they're hosting the world's most boring rave. Their mission? Refill ATMs up and down the Las Vegas Strip. And of course, their first stop is Circus. Because nothing screams professionalism like planning your felony around a hotel that features actual juggling acts and an indoor roller coaster. Heather pulls up to the hotel. Scott and Steve hop out to refill the ATMs. They tell her to meet them at a side entrance near a building charmingly called Slots of Fun. Which, let's be real, sounds less like a casino and more like a shady adult arcade. Heather drives around, but instead of stopping where she's supposed to, she casually keeps going. Past the circus. Past the clowns. Past the confused coworkers. And just like that, poof! She's gone. With the truck. And the cash. And the smug satisfaction of someone who actually remembered to fill up the gas tank before fleeing a crime scene. Back inside the casino, Scott and Steve finish their ATM duties, stroll outside expecting their armored Uber to be waiting, and instead find a random taxi parked where the truck should be. At first, they assume Heather's just lost. Or maybe in traffic. Or, crashed into a buffet. They radio her. No answer. They wait. Still nothing. That's when Scott, jokingly, but also not really jokingly, suggests maybe she took off with the money. Imagine their faces when that joke aged like milk. After 30 minutes of standing around in their vests and regrets, they call Loomis. Loomis calls the cops. The cops call the FBI. And Las Vegas officially has a new attraction, the Disappearing Armored Truck Show, starring Heather Tallchief. But while the Strip is still scratching its head, Heather's already back at Roberto's warehouse. They pull the truck inside, shut the doors, and get to work. They break down the cash into smaller boxes. Load it into other vehicles. Ship it off to Miami like it's just another Tuesday. Then, for their grand finale, they throw on disguises, Roberto as a doctor, Heather in a wheelchair with a wig, and call a cab, claiming it's a medical emergency. Honestly? Bold. The cab takes them to a private airstrip, because of course they booked a charter plane ahead of time, and off they go, first to Denver, then to Miami, then out of the country. And that was that. Heather and Roberto were gone. Vanished. Like a pair of super-budget magicians with a $3 million trick up their sleeve. So. The truck is gone. The money is gone. The suspects? Also gone. Naturally, the FBI is like, "Excuse me, what now?" Loomis is panicking. Las Vegas casinos are on high alert. And the city's clowns? Honestly, just relieved it wasn't them for once. The feds start with the obvious, Heather's address. They raid her apartment, hoping to find some clue, some cash, something. Instead, they find empty closets, a half-used roll of toilet paper, and the sound of their own embarrassment echoing off the walls. But then, jackpot. The forensic team pulls fingerprints off the furniture. One of them matches Heather, which, duh. But the other one? Belongs to none other than our man Roberto Solis. And suddenly, the puzzle pieces click into place. The charming older boyfriend? Not just a midlife crisis. He's the mastermind. The FBI quickly checks out Roberto's fake business, remember steel reinforcement services, and find Tata, the abandoned armored truck. Along with some leftover cash, empty cardboard boxes, Heather's work vest, and a chartered plane receipt to Denver. Honestly, it's like Roberto left them a scavenger hunt. Just without any actual prizes. They also find a postal receipt linked to an address in Miami. So the feds hop over to Florida, cross their fingers, and, plot twist, find 2 forged passports with names that sound like off-brand cereal mascots, Nicole Marie Rieger and Joseph Anthony Panura. Both stamped for Suriname, a tiny country in South America, which is apparently a great place to vanish if you've just pulled off a multi-million-dollar heist. International authorities get involved. But by the time they poke around in Suriname, nothing. Not a trace. Not a whisper. Not even a politely worded postcard. The FBI is officially stumped. Months pass. Then years. Then a decade. Heather Tallchief becomes the most wanted woman in America, and simultaneously the woman least likely to answer your calls. Back in reality? She and Roberto are living it up in Amsterdam under new identities. New names. New lives. Same stolen millions. But just when you think the story ends there, with 2 con artists living happily ever after in Tulip Country, things take another wild turn. Because Heather gets pregnant. And suddenly, things aren't so glamorous anymore. So there they are, Heather and Roberto, hiding out in Amsterdam. Brand new identities. Unlimited euros. Probably drinking fancy coffee in a canal-side cafe like they didn't just Houdini out of the most secure job in Nevada. And then, baby on board. Heather gets pregnant, and with that, her whole mindset shifts. Because apparently, you can steal millions of dollars and flee the country, but you can't outrun maternal instinct. Once the baby arrives, Heather starts reevaluating her life choices, probably somewhere between diaper changes and dodging Interpol. She realizes she doesn't want her son to grow up in the same kind of chaotic, unstable mess she did. Fair. Also, Roberto? Not exactly the picture of domestic bliss. He's controlling, manipulative, and honestly, kind of a buzzkill. Heather's had enough. So she does what any mom would do when her baby daddy's a felonious narcissist, she bails. Heather and Roberto split. And here's the kicker, he takes all the money. All of it. Leaves her with $0, a baby, and a resume that's basically just a giant red flag. So now Heather, once the mastermind's apprentice, is working as a hotel maid under the name Donna Marie Eaton. No more luxury hideouts. Just room service carts and a whole lot of regrets. But even then, she keeps going. For her son. Meanwhile, back in the US, the FBI's long since given up. Heather's a cold case. Roberto is a ghost. And the armored truck heist is just one of those weird unsolved mysteries you read about and assume got made into a documentary narrated by a man in a trench coat. But then, twist. September 15, 2005. Las Vegas. A woman in her 30s walks into the U.S. Marshal's office. She's calm. Collected. Says she'd like to speak to someone. And then drops the ultimate mic. Hello, my name is Heather Catherine Tallchief. 12 years ago, I stole millions of dollars from a Loomis armored truck, and I'm here to surrender. Plot twist. The agents are stunned. Probably thought it was a prank. Or a documentary pitch. But nope. It's real. Heather, who pulled off one of the most legendary disappearances in Vegas history, just walked back into the story. And she wasn't just turning herself in. She was turning herself in for her son. She told the marshals, "You get very tired of running. This is not a life. If you're living in a prison mentally, then what is a box? A room with restricted privileges? It's nothing compared to what I've already been through." That's surprisingly profound. For a woman who once dressed up like a wheelchair patient to catch a plane out of the country. So, Heather's back. No disguise. No escape plan. Just a woman finally ready to face the music, and it's less Viva Las Vegas and more oops, my boyfriend made me rob a truck. The media, of course, loses it. Headlines everywhere. Runaway armored truck driver turns herself in. True crime fans? Eating it up. The FBI? Somewhere between shocked and deeply relieved they don't have to keep pretending they're still working the case. 2 months later, Heather pleads guilty to bank embezzlement and credit union fraud. No big dramatic trial, no courtroom theatrics. Just a quiet little sentencing for one of the boldest heists in Vegas history. The verdict? 5 years and 3 months in federal prison. And honestly? Not bad, considering she vanished with $3 million and spent 12 years proving she was smarter than most law enforcement databases. In 2010, she was released. No book deal. No reality show. No high-profile interviews from a secret tropical island. Just Heather. Back in Las Vegas. A woman who stole a fortune, vanished like a magician, and then came back not for fame, not for money, but for her kid. Which is maybe the most unexpected plot twist of all. And Roberto Solis? Still missing. The man who wrote poetry, faked identities, and orchestrated a heist like it was an abstract performance art piece, just vanished into thin air. No one's seen him since. He may be sipping wine in the Alps. Or chilling on a beach with your money. Or writing sonnets in a cave, who knows? But Heather? She did her time. And now she's just living. Somewhere out there, hopefully not near another armored truck. Don't try this at home or anywhere, really. Thanks for watching, and remember, if your boyfriend's poetry is too good, maybe ask if he's also planning a felony. Catch you in the next one, where someone else makes even worse decisions.